How's this for a quote for kicking off 2026, friends? AI can give practitioners, researchers, innovators, and creators superpowers to create and do their work. Well, that's from Trond Kristiansen, our guest in this episode of the Performance Matters podcast series as we kick off 26, and he shares his, what I would argue, groundbreaking work in AI as a designer that has elevated his role in his organization to much more than just an L&D person, but a true business partner. Give a listen. What a great way to start the year. Friends, welcome back to another episode of the Performance Matters podcast series. Bob Mosher here. Happy holidays. My gosh, this is an end of year, or frankly, probably beginning of year podcast by the time we release this one. And frankly, I cannot think of a better one to start the year with because there's this AI thing out there that we're all looking at, wondering about. And from a 5 moments of need, performance first, performance matters perspective, personally, I could not be more thrilled with what that means to us as an L&D profession in our ability to do what we do, accelerate performance in a remarkable way. And what better guest to start with than someone who is a remarkable learning leader? He's doing this stuff, knee deep in it, doing brilliant work, a hero of mine in the performance support workflow learning space because his dedication to the methodology is unmatched by many. And the excitement we hear with him every time we talk and look at his good work in AI is just hopefully inspiring to all that listen to this. Trond, welcome. It's so good to have you here, friend. Let's do this, buddy. Let's start out the new year here with your name, the role, the stuff we do, right? And then obviously, why don't you blend that into, for context, and then why don't you blend that into your journey to 5 moments, and then we're going to get deep into this.
Yeah. First of all, that must be the craziest introduction I've ever had.
Well earned,
my name is,
friend.
Yeah, my name is Trond Kristiansen. I live and work in the north of Norway. I've worked in the intersections of humans, organizations, and technology most of my career.
Mm.
I'm currently working at the Nordland Hospital Trust. I've been here since 2009. Mm. I guess I've worked most of my career within the health sector, but also within IT consulting companies, and my first job was at a university college. So I'm like a social scientist on my basis, and then I have a master's degree in, it's called open and distance education. That tells you how old I am.
Well, mine's in computer science, so you can imagine what that means.
Yeah, so I took this one at Open University in the UK. So it's
nice.
MA in distance education taken at a distance.
Education, so, yeah. Kind of cool. Yeah.
Yeah. It's actually a little bit different than the traditional instructional design education, because mine is more like constructivist and social constructivist. So yeah, it's more on learning design. So I guess you could say that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So 5 moments, friends.
5 moments. My journey started out with, after I installed a learning management system for the hospital and spent lots of money on buying content from one of our vendors, we decided to evaluate the results from it. And this was training for software, electronic patient journaling systems that nurses, doctors, and secretaries used. And the doctors weren't using it. And so we did focus group interviews and asked them what they thought about our e-learning and how they were using it or not using it. And I remember there's one senior doctor and neurologist. I asked him, he says, well, it's not really relevant for me. but of course we knew it was. But the problem was it was packaged in a 30-minute or 45-minute learning module. And there was no way I could get him to fast forward or log into the platform. And so I needed to find something else. And lo and behold, I stumbled over your book, Innovative Performance Support, and read it. And is it halfway out the book where you have the flipped pyramid?
Yep.
That had me. Because this was exactly what I needed. I needed to flip the learning pyramid. So it was performance support based. And that from one thing to another, we used parts of the methodology even before I was certified. I was certified and starting in 2021. But we used it in projects before that and had great success with that. And so I just love the enable module. The framework is perfect for how we do work in the hospital. It's all the tools it embeds and everything. I think it's a great methodology. So yeah.
Yeah. That's a remarkable compliment, Trond, to Khan, frankly, in his life work and that a lot, because we often hear that, well, there's jobs and professions and verticals that are scary, like medical and police officers. And so we can't use that there. They need to be trained. They need to go to because this stuff is so important and so scary, and so it's like, and I've journeyed in all those verticals, frankly, in my life now. And I find if anywhere, that's where you need it more than anything.
Sure.
I mean, my gosh, the rate of change, the criticality of the performance, what's at stake to get things right is so, and I get the danger, but sometimes I was having a conversation just the other day with somebody. I said, so when was that ever not the case? When everyone likes to point fingers at the methodology sometimes, and I'm like, so you're saying that it's great now then? So you're saying that training alone is doing a great job and it's scary to go to this performance thing. Well, you just outlined it brilliantly, right? So
it's not like we're not doing training. Of course, we're doing training. Right. Training is important, but it's not like I don't. In the 90s, we had these socks. They were like one size. We call them tube socks here in Norway.
Right, yeah.
We've been treating training like a tube sock, and it's not
brilliant.
Yeah,
brilliant. And you're right, and thank you for backing me up on that too, because that's where when I go off in these rants, that's where sometimes I get yelled at, because there are 5 moments of need. Khan was very careful that it's not just apply, solve, and change. There are 5 moments that we have to meet. The problem has been, to your point, that at least in the first, 30 years of my professional journey, we were all about new and more. And, and so we've got that covered. We do it great. Maybe we overburden it a bit, frankly, but then this thing came along and it not just changed my ability to support performance directly in a way I hadn't before. It radically changed how training was done and needed to be done, and how much and what you could do with it. Just wonderful things that I think have weighed L&D down for a while. So, friend, it's just been remarkable to watch your journey, even when, God bless you, you just powered your way through the book. I don't know how you did that. It says a lot about you as a learner and performer, but then you got the certificate.
Yeah, I wish I'd done that way earlier.
Right. Well, learning in the flow of work, right? But so AI, I'm so impressed with it's hard to find an L&D professional, frankly, that has a unique balance of technology acumen and instructional acumen, and your hunger for technology and your willingness to embrace it and keep your North Star true to performance and all these things. And I think that's a huge part of why you're successful. Why has AI excited you so much? What pulled you into that?
Actually, I was really thinking about it a couple of weeks back, because my dad, he was a dedicated crew chief for the F-16 fighter planes.
Wow.
And
okay.
He worked on 3 different generation of fighter jets, and
wow.
One of his passions were restoring old airplanes. So he's been restoring old airplanes, and my brother and I, we would always go with him, and we got to sit in the cockpit of the Spitfire that he was restoring, and he was even restoring old biplanes made out of wood. But one of the things that impressed me was that he had this practical wisdom. It was incredible. He knew how to fix things, and if he didn't have the tools, he would make them.
Yeah.
And it struck me, I'm actually doing the same now.
You are.
With my work, because we have AI and we have this new thing called vibe coding that I can actually use AI to make the tools I need. And I can use AI to create thinking tools that I can use in my work. And so I think about AI, and I have a great respect for those that are anxious and think that AI could be scary, and it's totally legitimate to have like a concern there, because actually I think we're going about using AI the wrong way, because we should actually flip it. It shouldn't be artificial intelligence. It should be intelligence augmentation.
Mm.
And I think when we think about artificial intelligence, oh, this is great. Is at a scale, it's going to replace humans and do their jobs. It's totally acceptable to be concerned. But like I said, I think we have it wrong. And if the discussion is just AI, you see companies laying off people, and then after a while, they're rehiring them again.
Bringing them
I
back.
think it was Klarna, this financial company. They laid off lots of people, and then they figured out after a while, we can't have AI agents without human support. It's not the right fit for our company because we need empathy, we need smiles, we need innovation, and of course, we need critical thinking so we can improve our processes. And all that goes away when you think about artificial intelligence. But the moment you flip it and you say, oh, we're talking about intelligence augmentation, AI should give practitioners, researchers, innovators, and creators superpowers to create and do their work. I think the problem is how we frame it.
I totally agree, friend. And this is so exciting for me on a couple levels. And I hope the L&D folks out there are kicking off their year by listening to this. And they have really, in my opinion, are sitting at a crossroad. The whole order taker junk, the whole I want to see the table stuff. I have heard it for 35 years. And to your point, it's warranted. But after a while, you're just a whiner. I mean, and sometimes I think we sit at these conferences and we're among friends. So we just love to commiserate. And everyone in the room is nodding and agreeing. And again, so that's the identification of the problem. So then build something, change something, position yourself differently. And where you're going with this, and I think we're going to go deeper in it in a moment, specifically around the methodology, is where anytime we have taught this to anybody over the years, the first thing they run into is the weight of the lift, the gathering of the data, the writing of tasks, the getting SMEs available to all this stuff. And so this is so empowering to me in the way you're describing it, because it lifts us from much of that and lets us become anything but an order taker. We can become performance architects and consultants to our organizations. And sure, we make these cool things that help us enable that. That has been a flip we have looked at for decades. And here we sit, not at the precipice, as you'll say in a minute, we are in it, where we can start doing this. So friend, take us to the methodology in your world and the remarkable things that have maybe spoken to some of those obstacles or points.
Yeah, so going back to my tool making ideas, I decided I was going to use AI to kind of hack my job because in the 5 moments of need space in the hospital, I'm like an army of one.
Right,
so I need help.
Right.
Yeah.
As many are, by the way.
Yeah. And so I started using ChatGPT. And when I could make my own GPTs, I could put my content into the chat and I could like have a dialogue with the content. And I used prompting to make it do what I wanted. And it worked to a degree, but it wasn't consistent. And the answers I got wasn't reliable. I got hallucinations, and RWA wasn't rapid workflow analysis. It became something else, and it made its own acronyms. So I kept pushing that. And in October, actually, Anthropic released a really simple specification called Agent Skills, which is basically just a long structured prompt that sort of like gives agents, they call it skill, but it's nothing like a human skill or anything. So if you think about when I had the ChatGPT and the GPT, I used like one-shot prompts. That was like sending someone a single email. I asked them to do something and explain what I needed, and they did it. And every time I wanted them to do something, I have to send an email and explain everything again and again. Yes. And so I would just like analyze this workflow description for identify bottlenecks, elicit the tasks and things like that. I would have to write that every time. And one-shot prompts work beautiful for tasks that are genuinely atomic and self-contained. But when I saw that the way agent skill was structured, it was like I'm hiring a specialist here who's been trained in the enable methodology. It can do the analysis. It's capable, and I could package it into a kind of like a skill package. It's basically a zip file, and you can upload it into Claude, and it has like a methodology document that explains you're going to do a rapid workflow analysis, and it has parts of the methodology and shows how to go through it. What's the task? How can you find out what supporting knowledge is? And all these things. And so I made I stole a few things from the Enable digital coach, and I tweaked it a little bit, and I put it in the skills. And I did several iterations, and I dropped all kinds of crazy content from procedures from the WHO, and I have some procedures and SOPs from the hospital that I tried, and it actually worked. It worked pretty good. And then my next one was, can Claude create workflows, diagrams? And yeah, sure, it did that too. And something called Mermaid code. And this is not complex things. These are just text files.
Yep.
And what I learned is that Enable is actually a really brilliant methodology if you think intelligence augmentation.
Yeah, I love that.
Because once you think about intelligence augmentation, it positions technology as an amplifier of human expertise rather than just a substitute for it.
Yeah, we need to pause on that for a minute. We need, because I want everyone to just take a second and let that one settle for a minute. So inspiring, so thrilling, so challenging, and I mean that in like an exciting, challenging way. And Donald Clark, you know him, I'm sure, right? And Donald's good work. Recent great book he just released on AI and productivity, he calls it, which I love his pivot, right? It's the same idea that we've got to stop looking at it as replacement per se. Although, yeah, in expertise, things are taken over, shortened, done well. I get all that. But his point is that it's proven that the human intelligence has a ceiling. We're flawed by our own design, right? And although you've heard forever the brain isn't unlimited and we only use 20% of it, so let's tap into the other 80. It ain't happening, right? We've got things in our life like noise and stress and kids and sleep and things that we need. So his point is, why can't this augment that? Why can't this lift it in a complementary way to a level we could not have achieved on our own? That, Trond, is the coolest thing in the world. And you're living it in what you've done with the methodology. What excites you most about what you're seeing with that? What gains have you seen? How is it impacting your work?
It's simple. You can start doing this yourself. Just get Claude, and there's even a skill in Claude that teaches you how to make a skill.
Of course there is.
Yeah. So it's called the Agent Skill Builder. So it's a structured guide for how you can create modular skills and share them with your coworkers. So actually what I did last week in the hospital, we have to do risk analysis of all the IT systems and the procedures and everything. And especially if you have new technology and you use biometric authentication in any kind, or you process patient information, you have to do really thorough risk analysis. And of course, living in Scandinavia and Europe, we have the GDPR. And so we really have to apply by that. So two of my colleagues who are lawyers and work with information security, actually there's three of them, I decided to have a look at how they did their work. And so I got a ton of SOPs and tons of guides, and I fed it into my rapid workflow analysis, because if I'm going to make it an agent skill, I need to know what they need to do. And I need to know what they need to know to do this. And so actually I performed an RWA. And once I had the RWA, I started to create the agent skill. And I gave it rules and I gave it guides and everything. So I used RWA to create a new agent skill. And then I did a risk analysis of one of the projects I'm working on. And I used the hospital's templates and risk matrices and everything. And it came out pretty good. And so I sent it over to my friend and I just got a thumbs up. Can we have a meeting about this?
Good.
But the thing is that And another thing I did was I created something I called an AI governance matrix, which is basically a combination of SIP, critical impact of failure analysis, and complexity analysis. So I figured out, because one of the projects I did in the hospital was I implemented a robotic process automation platform so we can make software robots. And in my training there as a business analyst, we had calculators to find out which processes can automate, and low-hanging fruits, and what can be semi-automated, where do we need to put a human in the loop, and all those things. And so I used the SIF scale and the complexity scale, and I made the AI governance matrix. And so
Nice.
I have like an automation zone, and the automation zone is where you have tasks with low complexity and low critical impact of failure. And I thought, Claude can just start doing that. Just execute it. I'll spot check and see if you're doing it okay.
Absolutely. Right.
Yeah. And so the other is my moderate zone, where I have low complexity, low SIF, and high complexity. And then I have an approval zone. Those are like intermediate, where the AI will generate drafts or have me come in and select and refine the task descriptions and supporting knowledge and all those things. And then I have the critical zone with high complexity and high SIF, and that's all for a human to do.
Brilliant.
Because if you think in the intelligence augmentation framework, you need to use your judgment. So when you have your designer certificate, you can let AI do all the easy tasks, but you need to use your judgment and critical skills when you work with tasks that are high in critical impact of failure, or even if they're complex, they might not be high critical impact of failure. And that's something that's important to know, because if you're implementing software in a hospital and the manager says, oh, this is really complex, we need to do a lot of training on this. And that might not be the case.
Correct.
Even though it's many steps and it's complex, it might not have a high critical impact of failure. So you need to take the risk out of that for the manager. So, okay, don't worry about this. Worry about this.
Brilliant. It's so many who listen to this. I know of a large organization like Trond. Of course, I think you represent more the masses than not, at least even tiny L&D teams, 2 or 3. And we do know of one that's trying to scale this across thousands. It's a large multi-global national. And they're not worried only about Mary doing this right. They're worried about 1,000 Marys doing this right. And how do we get 1,000 Marys to do it in any way, shape, or form close to how the other Mary does it? And this uniformity, this skills, these consistent processes and things to follow not only help what you've done so brilliantly in your one-person shop, it also helps the scalability for an organization of that size to be doing 5 moments in months, not years, across a lot of developers. And I want to talk a little bit about output, and I'd love your take on this impact on a digital coach. And I know you use one. How is this aided in that side of a deliverable?
Okay, so a cloud skill can output tasks and supporting knowledge. And in my skill, I've made templates of, like we learned in taking our certificates. I've used those templates. Yeah, they're good. And an agent skill will output files in Markdown format, which is a simple text file. Markdown is AI friendly. It will write out tasks in rich text format. It even has a Word docx skill. And so if you call that skill, it will write you Word files instead. But one of the senior full stack developers, he exposed the platform and commands in the platform to an MCP server. It's like a USB port to info caption from Claude. So instead of outputting Markdown files or Word files, I would have Claude create guides on the fly. So it will create tasks and supporting knowledge on the fly. So that's why I started to think about the AI governance matrix, because I need to put the human in the loop. Once I saw it, I could automate everything that was low SIF and low complexity. Just go ahead and do it.
Wow. So, two questions to kind of wrap us up here, and we're probably going to have you back for part two, and maybe try to convince you to get to the summit, Charlotte, in 26. That's a whole other
Yeah,
conversation. So, how has it changed your role at the hospital at all, or how you're seen, or your ability to meet that doctor who wouldn't take the 45-minute thing because it
yeah.
wasn't relevant? And then, if you wouldn't mind transitioning into what do you recommend someone who's listening who's going, my gosh, I want to be him? I mean, I want to get there. I've seen the light. The clarity of your explanations, trying to really impresses me because I think you make it in a way that people may not even dabbling in AI yet get this. They may not do it yet, but they get it. So the journey from your role and your perception and your ability to do what you do at the hospital. And then how would you tell someone to start that journey? What's something to do in January of 26? Where would you go with that?
First, in the hospital, I get to run these small innovation projects, trying out new technologies and see how they affect the work we do. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity to do that. And one of those things is to see how AI can augment our work. And sometimes it's fair to say that AI actually can automate boring tasks that humans don't have to do. So I guess I'm more positioned towards performance now, way more than training back in the day. So I don't think I've opened LMS or Articulate Storyline or Rise for a long time now. Actually, last week, I said to my colleague, I really don't need this license. Give it to someone else. So,
Okay.
yeah, but I think if you want to have a look at your content, you can try out and see if you want to create an agent skill. And actually on Friday, I saw on X, they had discovered that OpenAI had put skill files into ChatGPT. So skills is not longer just a Anthropic Claude thing. It's in OpenAI and ChatGPT.
Wow.
Because it's a really simple way to do things. And so start by creating a skill and find a procedure that you're interested in. I just did a workflow map maker skill.
There you go.
Yeah, I just did that. And I was thinking I could do a content builder skill. Separate from the RWA. So the RWA could actually just send the work to another agent skill, and I can actually do that. And all I have to do is reference it in natural language in a text file, and it'll do it for me. So it's an easy way to get going and get started. They're exciting times.
We're doing a AI workflow workshop with Josh Cavalier, who just also wrote another great book. Con and him have been joined at the hip in that, and the excitement is like I haven't felt or seen in a long time. And I've spoken at conferences for years, and I've defended the methodology, and I've also heard every obstacle imaginable, every reason not to do it, every reason why it's so hard. And friends, it is a brave new world. And we are positioned because of people like you, because of your good work and your willingness to share your journey in ways that we've not maybe in my career. So again, what a remarkable podcast to start the year. Friends, listen to this 100 times. Make this your 2026 goal. And I believe everything else you're challenged with, everything else your organization's asking you to do will fall in line. But we need more people like you, friend. So thank you for your leadership, your innovation, your excitement, your passion, your willingness to share. You are a wonderful representation of how our industry should be as a community. So thank you for that. Have a spectacular holiday. We'll talk in the new year. But thanks again, friend. Great
Thank
stuff.
You. Happy holidays.
Well, that's it for this episode of the 5 Moments of Need Performance Matters series. We look forward to future conversations around how to best put the 5 Moments of Need into practice. We welcome your feedback and can be reached on our 5 Moments of Need website, which is www.5momentsofneed.com. We hope you're finding these helpful and will subscribe to future episodes. Have a great day, friends.